Midnight, Chapter 1. Leaves rustled as the young tabby cat slid through a gap between two bushes, his jaws wide open to drink in the scent of his prey. On this warm night in Lake Greenleaf, the forest was full of the scuffles of tiny creatures. Movements twitched endlessly at the edge of his vision, but when he turned his head he could see nothing but thick clumps of fern and bramble, dappled with moonlight. Suddenly he stepped out into a wide clearing, and gazed around in confusion. He could not remember being in this part of the forest before. Smooth cropped grass, glowing silver in a cold wash of moonlight, stretched in front of him as far as a softly rounded rock where another cat was sitting. Starlight sparkled in her fur, and her eyes were two small moons. The young tabby's bewilderment increased as he recognized her. "Blue Star?" he meowed, his voice shrill with disbelief. He had been an apprentice when the great leader of ThunderClan had died, 4 seasons ago, leaping into the gorge with a pack of blood-hungry dogs after her. Like all her clan, he had grieved for her and honoured her for the way she had given up her life to save them. He had never thought to see her again, and he realized for the first time that he must be dreaming. "Come closer, young warrior," Blue Star meowed. "I have a message for you." Shivering with awe, the tabby Tom crept across the shining stretch of turf until he crouched before the rock and could look up into Blue Star's eyes. "I'm listening, Blue Star," he mewed. "A time of trouble is coming to the forest," she told him. "A new prophecy must be fulfilled if the clans are to survive. You have been chosen to meet with 3 other cats at the new moon, and you must listen to what Midnight tells you." "What do you mean?" The young cat felt a prickle of dread, cold as snowmelt, creep down his spine. "What kind of trouble? And how can Midnight tell us anything?" "All will be made clear to you," Blue Star replied. Her voice faded, echoing strangely as if she was speaking from a cavern far beneath the earth. The moonlight also began to grow dim, leaving thick black shadows to creep out of the trees around them. "No, wait!" the tabby cried out. "Don't go!" He let out a terrified yowl, thrashing his paws and tail, as darkness rose up and engulfed him. Something poked him in the side, and his eyes flew open to see Greystripe, the ThunderClan deputy, standing over him with one paw raised to prod him again. He was scuffling among moss in the warrior's den, with the golden sunlight leaking through the branches over his head. "Bramble-claw, you crazy furball," the deputy meowed. "What's all the noise about? You'll scare off all the prey from here to 4 trees. "Sorry." Bramble-claw sat up and began picking scraps of moss from his dark fur. "I was just dreaming." "Dreaming," grunted a new voice. Brumble-claw turned his head to see the white warrior, Cloudtail, heave himself out of a mossy nest nearby, and give a long stretch. "Honestly, you're as bad as Firestar," Cloudtail went on. "When he slept in here, he was always muttering and twitching in his sleep. A cat couldn't get a good night's rest for all the prey in the forest." Brambleclaw twitched his ears to hear how disrespectfully the white warrior spoke about the clan leader. Then he reminded himself that this was Cloudtail, Firestar's kin, and former apprentice, well known for his barbed tongue and ready scorn. His impudent talk didn't stop him from being a loyal warrior to his clan. Cloudtail gave his long furred white coat a shake and slipped out of the den, flicking the end of his tail at Brambleclaw in a friendly way to take the sting out of his words as he went by. "Come on, you lot," meowed Greystripe. "It's time you were moving." He picked his way through the moss on the floor of the den to prod Ashfur awake. "Hunting patrol will be going out soon. Brackenfur is organising them." "Right," Brambleclaw mewed. His vision of Blue Star was fading, though her ominous message echoed in his ears. Could it really be true that there was a new prophecy from StarClan? It seemed fairly unlikely. For a start, Brambleclaw could not imagine why she would choose to give it to him, of all the cats in ThunderClan. Medicine cats frequently received signs from StarClan, and ThunderClan's leader, Firestar, had often been guided by his dreams, but they were not for ordinary warriors. Trying to blame his wild imaginings on too much fresh kill the night before, Brambleclaw gave his shoulder one last lick and followed Cloudtail through the trailing branches. The sun was barely up above the hedge of thorns that surrounded the camp, but the day was already warm. Sunlight lay like honey on the bare earth in the centre of the clearing. Sorel Paw, the oldest of the apprentices, lay stretched out beside the ferns that sheltered the apprentices' den, sharing tongues with her den mates, Spiderpaw and Shrewpaw. Cloudtail had gone over to the nettle patch where the warriors ate and was already gulping down a starling. Brambleclaw noticed that the pile of fresh kill was very low. As Greystripe had said, the clan needed to hunt right away. He was about to go and join the white warrior when Sorel Paw sprang up and came bounding across the clearing towards him. "It's today," she announced excitedly. Brambleclaw blinked. "What is?" "My warrior ceremony." With a little meow of happiness, the tortoiseshell she-cat hurled herself at Brambleclaw. The unexpected attack bowled him over, and they wrestled together on the dusty ground, just as they used to when they were kits together in the nursery. Sorrel Paw's hind paw battered Brambleclaw in the belly, and he thanked StarClan that her claws were sheathed. There was no doubt that she would make a strong and dangerous warrior, one that every cat would respect. All right, that's enough." Brambleclaw cuffed Sorrel Paw gently over one ear and scrambled up. "If you're going to be a warrior, you'll have to stop behaving like a kit." "A kit?" Sorrel Paw meowed indignantly. She sat in front of him, her fur sticking up in clumps covered with dust. "Me? Never! I've waited a long time for this, Brambleclaw." "I know. You deserve it." Sorrel Paw had ventured too close to the thunder path when she was chasing a squirrel in New Leaf. A two-legged monster had struck her a glancing blow, injuring her shoulder. While she lay in Cinderpelt's den for 3 long, uncomfortable moons, under the gentle care of the medicine cat, her brothers, Sootfur and Rain Whisker, had become warriors. Sorrel Paw had been determined to follow them as soon as Cinderpelt declared her fit enough to be training again. Brambleclaw had watched how hard she was working with her mentor, Sandstorm, until her shoulder was as good as new. She had never shown any bitterness at being forced to train for several moons longer than the usual apprenticeship. She really deserved her warrior ceremony. "I've just taken fresh kill to Ferncloud," she meowed to Brambleclaw. "Her kits are beautiful. Have you seen them yet?" "No, not yet," Brambleclaw replied. Ferncloud's second litter of kits had been born only the day before. "Go now," Sorrel Paw urged him. "You've just enough time before we hunt." She sprang up and danced a few steps sideways, as if all of her energy had to go somewhere. Brambleclaw set off for the nursery, which was hidden in the depths of the bramble thicket near the centre of the camp. He squeezed through the narrow entrance, wincing as thorns scraped against his broad shoulders. Inside it was warm and quiet. Ferncloud was lying on her side in a deep nest of moss. Her green eyes glowed as she gazed at the 3 tiny kits curled up snugly in the curve of her body. One was pale grey like her, and the other 2 brown tabbies like their father, Dustpelt. He was in the nursery too, crouched beside Ferncloud with his paws tucked under him, occasionally rasping his tongue affectionately over her ear. "Hey there, Brambleclaw," he meowed as the young warrior appeared. "Come to see the new kits?" He looked ready to burst with pride, quite different from his usual prickly self. "They're beautiful," Brambleclaw mewed, touching noses with Ferncloud in greeting. "Have you chosen names for them yet?" Ferncloud shook her head, blinking drowsily up at him. "Not yet." "There's enough time for that." Goldenflower, the oldest ThunderClan queen, and Brambleclaw's own mother, spoke from her mossy bed. She had no kits of her own to nurse, but she had decided to stay in the nursery and share the care of the new arrivals instead of taking up her warrior duties again. She was nearing the time when she would have to go and join the elders in their den, and was the first to admit that her hearing and eyesight were no longer sharp enough to keep up with the best hunting patrols. "They're strong, healthy kits, that's what matters, and Ferncloud has plenty of milk." Brambleclaw respectfully dipped his head to her. "She's lucky to have you to help look after them." "Well, I didn't do a bad job with you," Goldenflower purred proudly. "There's something you could do for me," Dustpelt meowed to Brambleclaw as he was leaving. "Sure, if I can." "Keep an eye on Squirrel Paw, would you? I want to spend a day or 2 with Ferncloud while the kits are still so small, but Squirrel Paw shouldn't be left without a mentor for too long." "Squirrel Paw!" Brambleclaw groaned inwardly. Firestar's daughter, 8 moons old, recently apprenticed, and the biggest nuisance in ThunderClan. "It'll be good practice for when you have an apprentice of your own," Dustpelt added, as if he sensed his clanmate's reluctance. Brambleclaw knew that Dustpelt was right. He hoped that Firestar would choose him to be a mentor before much longer, with an apprentice of his own to train in the warrior code. But he also hoped that his apprentice would not be some smart aleck she-cat who thought that she knew it all. He was well aware that Squirrel Paw would not take kindly to orders coming from him. "Okay, Dustpelt," he meowed. "I'll do my best." When Brambleclaw emerged from the nursery, he saw that more cats had appeared in the clearing. Bright Heart, a pretty white she-cat with ginger patches on her fur like fallen leaves, had just chosen a piece of fresh pull from the remains of the pile and was taking it across to where Cloudtail still sat by the nettle patch. The uninjured side of her face was turned to Brambleclaw, so that he could almost forget the disfiguring wounds she had received when the dog pack roamed the forest. One side of her face was seamed with scars, and her ear had been shredded. There was only a gouge mark where her eye should be. Even though she had survived the vicious attack, the clan had feared that she would never be a warrior. It was Cloudtail who had trained with her and worked out ways of making up for her blindness on that side, even turning it into a strength, so that now she could fight and hunt as well as any cat. Cloudtail greeted her with a flick of his tail, and she sat beside him to eat. "Brambleclaw, there you are!" Brambleclaw turned and saw a long-legged ginger warrior heading towards him from the direction of the warrior's den. He padded over to meet him. "Hi, Brackenfur. Greystripe said you're organising hunting patrols." "That's right," Brackenfur meowed. "Will you go out with Squirrel Paw this morning, please?" He angled his ears toward the apprentice's den, and Brambleclaw noticed for the first time that Squirrel Paw was half concealed in the shade of the ferns. She sat tall, her tail curled around her paws, her green eyes following a bright-winged butterfly. When Brackenfur beckoned her with his tail, she got up and strolled across the clearing, her tail straight up and her dark ginger fur gleaming in the sunlight. "Hunting patrol," Brackenfur explained briefly. "Dustpelt is busy, so you can go with Brambleclaw. Can you find another cat to go with you?" Without waiting for an answer, he hurried off towards Sandstorm and Sorrel Paw.